Welcome to the webinar series Expert Talk on Survivor Engagement. In this 6-episode series, we explore the transformative potential of survivor engagement in anti-trafficking work. Each episode features an expert in the field, and together we'll dive into key topics, providing insights, best practices, and inspiration for advancing meaningful survivor participation. Our discussions cover a range of essential themes such as survivor-led advocacy, ethical storytelling, trauma-informed practices, and the role of lived experience in research and policy making. Through these conversations, we aim to build a deeper understanding of how survivor engagement can drive systemic change and empower individuals and communities alike. In this episode, I will be introducing Flora Enifo, co-founder and community manager at MIST, a survivor-led organization based in Paris. Flora will speak about the basics of survivor engagement and how to connect and mobilize people with lived experience. Flora, we're here to hear from you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Flora. Thank you, Sylvia, for giving me this opportunity to be here today. So today I will maybe give more light on survivors' engagement and what it needs for survivor to engage meaningfully, and also maybe some of the reflections that are needed before engaging with survivors also. So I think that survivors' engagement, it is very crucial to have people with lived experience participating in the fight against human trafficking. But at the same time, I think it's also very necessary to be careful about how we use these terms, because it seems like survivors' engagement are also becoming trends in in today's world. Everybody just talk about survivors' engagement, but they don't really also take the necessary time to reflect on it, what it really means for survivors to be engaged. So I think that it is important to outline that survivors' engagement we are talking about, it's engaging meaningfully, an engagement and participation that is valuable, that have meanings for the survivors. This is why it has to be meaningful. So, and it's also very important in order to avoid flowing with these trends, it's important to be sure and to know that survivors, they don't have superpower. And it's not because you engage survivors that everything you are expected to be done immediately. They don't have Superman power. So, and before engaging survivor, it is very important to create a safe and adaptable space for survivors in order for their participation to be meaningful. And structures must also ask some ethical questions before engaging with survivors, and such as, who are the survivors we are engaging with? How do we how do we engage them? How do we mobilize them so that their participation will be meaningful and responsible? So these reflections are very necessary, because engaging and mobilizing survivor with people with lived experience demand a huge level of questioning and reflections. We have to always have a moment of reflection and questioning. Are we going to the right direction? Are the visions and the interest and the needs of the survivor, are they in the center of what we are bringing, the program we are proposing? Are the interest of the survivors in the middle of this? So the questioning aspect is the key point to reflect on when we are engaging with survivor. So there are also some reflections such as, how do I also get the survivors to care about what we are doing, what we are engaging them into. What does this mean to them? We have to attract their you have to align with their goals and their principles as well in order for it to be meaningful, in order for it to be very meaningful. So it's also to, important to reflect on the fact that are the values that we share, does it match with the value that the survivors share in order to avoid exploitations and manipulations in terms of engagement. So these reflections are very important. How can I work with the survivors to enable them to transform their resources into power and tools that they need to achieve this purpose and change that they want to get involved in? It is a collaboration, it is not a given thing. Survivors are not coming to give you their knowledge or their experience or their story, but you have to create space for a meaningful collaboration, and such as creating adaptable facilities, creating programs, giving them access to employment, access to knowledge. This is what the collaboration should also be about. And then another reflection that is very also important is that why do we need to involve survivors? What does their involvement means to us as an organization? And what tools have we put in place in order for their participation to be serious and important and useful? Do we create this space for them? Do we have this space for the survivors to come in? Can we give them the necessary tools to build their capacity and make their knowledge become a huge tools in return? Do we have a safe space? Talking about a safe space, it is very necessary for the engagement of survivors to be done in a safe space. If the space is not safe enough, their inclusion and their participation will become meaningless. And then that will rebuild and they have to relive the lived experience, the traumatic experience they live again in order to avoid a real victimization. The space have to be very safe for them. And so we have to also ask what the participation means to the survivors themselves. You have to give them that space of sharing where they have to know why then they self want to engage. What does their engagement mean to them? What does it mean for me to engage? If I don't engage now, what is at stake for me? What am I losing if I don't engage now? They have to reflect on these things, and we NGOs and organizations have to work with them in order to have a proper reflections on these topics. So I think that all these reflections is also very important in order to avoid taking survivors engagement to become trends, because it's almost leading to that. Because when you talk to NGOs, they say, oh yeah, we have survivors who are participating, or we engage with survivors. But really that is not the type of participation that we talk about. We are talking about a meaningful participation, and participation that is important, participation that is serious, participation that gives sense, a useful and a valuable participation. So I think this is what the engagement of survivors should be about.
Yes, that's absolutely clear. And when we talk about meaningful participation, I think it takes us to uh, the concept of power. What does it mean, power in survivor engagement?
Yeah, I think the power we talk about in survivors engagement is really giving them access to decision making, participation in terms of decision making, also as giving them that power to decide their limits of participation as well, giving them that power to lead and be included completely in their own ways. You know, it's not mean, like if you involve survivors, if you engage survivors, and they never have the power to participate in contributions in terms of policies making, how things should be done. If there's this lack of power, and it's their participation become instrumentalization,
Hmm.
you know. So giving them that power, the power also means that giving them the right tools, and this power creates an equal space, and it creates an equal space where survivors are with professionals. They don't feel less important, they feel equal. So I think that is where that's power dynamics is very important in terms of survivors engagement. A power that will make them feel belong, that will give them access to tools and facilities, a power where they will be able to decide how they wish to participate and the level of participation they wish to give in.
And the power and the space to put across the message that they care about,
Yes,
that are important to them, and
yes,
not to be the voice of the organization that is sponsoring them, right?
yes, yes.
Which
A
would be,
power
on the
that,
contrary, the kind of instrumentalization that you were talking about. And with power, you also mentioned boundaries just a few
yes,
moments ago. And I recall one of the most reassuring teachings that we got from you was give the survivors space to engage and disengage. And this was
yes,
reassuring to to me, to us as a victim support organization, because sometimes we start an activity, we start a project, we engage people, then they have something else in their life, so they stop coming to the meetings, to the activities, and we freak out. Oh my God, we failed. So instead, you're advancing a different idea, which totally makes sense. And um, just tell us a little bit more about this.
yeah. I think that I think people sometimes misunderstood what it takes to involve survivors, and they believe that as a survivor, when you engage, it has to be a lifetime engagement. There are different type of engagement and different ways that survivors can engage if they wish to. The choices of type of engagement should be given to them, and the limits of the engagement should be respected. For some of survivors, their engagement is a process, is a particular moment in their life where they feel like what is happening to me right now or what just happened to me right now is not fair. I need to participate. I need to fight for it. And this participation could take a certain period of time. And after that, some of them just want to move further and move to another level. I think the life as a survivor, I think the life of survivors, our journey and stories, it's different steps. There are steps of engagement at a point that we just want to move from one stage to another. We don't want to remain in one stage. There's the steps of where we arrive. I try to analyze the atmosphere. I try to analyze where we are. And then after that, there's another stage where we realize that this is where we are. And then now, how do I find me? Who am I in this place that I am? That is another level. And then when you get to the third level, when you say, okay, now I have found me, what do I want for me? And then there's a stage where you realize what is happening to you and what has happened to you. And then try to analyze how did it happen and who am I in all these things. So it's a journey. And such same way with survivors engagement. At the first moment, we just want to participate. We just want to engage. And that space of a short participation should be allowed. It should not be forbidden. It's not a problem if a survivor at a point why not disengage and go for something else. Just a mist, for example. We realized this at the beginning of the creation of the organization. We give them that space that survivors should grow from one stage to another. If today they are very in, great. We give them that possibility to reflect on their journey and who they are and what they want to become. At the moment they realize what they want to become, we follow them into that direction. You shouldn't, as an organization, it shouldn't be, do I say, self-centered. You should, oh, that is where the ethical aspect and questioning comes from. What am I doing? Who am I doing this for? I want them to engage, yes, but they have to also grow. It's like a little child, it's stage to stage. As a parent, when you give birth to a child, there's a time where they are with us, but a time comes where they have to leave us. Organizations should have also this mindset that their engagement should not be a lifetime thing. I received some calls from people, from survivors, um, activists, that organization make them sign a year or 2 years contract of a voluntary participation. It doesn't make sense because that 1 year is a huge pressure. I have to say because I signed this paper. I have to do this because I have to. And then their participation become meaningless because what they wish to do is no longer what they are doing. And now they feel pressure because of the signature of 1 year voluntary contract. It
Yes,
doesn't make sense. So it's
absolutely.
very important to always think about our actions. What are we doing and who are we doing them for? If our goals is to help the survivors grow, we should give space to different type of engagement. For those that wish to stay, great. But for those that wish to go, that door should be open. And we don't make them feel bad because they want to go, because they are leaving. We have to make them feel ungrateful. We should let them go because it's part of the journey. It's a journey, it's a process, it's step by step, one door to another door. This is the type, no, it means we teach different steps of engagement, where you move from one stage to another. Such that is how survivors should be engaged.
And talking about the different types of engagement, peer mentoring is also very popular these years. Um, and it can be a form of survivor engagement with some people with lived experience who want to help other people who have been through trafficking or other forms of trauma and exploitation. But it's important to make a distinction between survivor engagement and peer mentoring. They're not the same thing, and I would like to hear more about that, Flora.
Yeah, so sometimes we observe some confusions between survivors' participation and peer education. Yes, the peer education is one way of intervention that survivors can can do, but it is not the only way. You know, so the peer education is a very strong way of participation because it fosters solidarities among survivors, and it also um, creates, gives space to role models that can lead to change. But it is not all survivors who can become a peer educators. It is not all who want to assist others at the point of their life, especially, or who want to do the training or the therapy that are needed. It is not all of them, you know. And so without a training and therapy, the risk is that many peer educators can just become bad social workers, can just become a bad influencer to the others. So training and therapy are expensive, and it is not all NGOs that can pay for it. Because this is a risk of efficiency and sustainability.
Yeah.
You see, so if a survivor's participation is only peer education, there is a huge risk of lack of political engagement.
Right.
The risk is that survivors become the tools for social workers, for NGOs, like a very cheap social workers that are they pay them less because they are less expensive, because they don't need to pay more money on on social workers, or cheap cultural mediators or cheap translators. It become a manipulative tools. It become a useless tools, you know. So it doesn't make sense if it has to be on that. So the power dynamics can be a disadvantage for the survivors. And also, survivors' participation can have in multiple forms, different forms. For example, it means we do diagnosis and assignment. They can diagnose, do different stuff, and they can alert specific issues of a specific needs, write reports about what is going on, how it's been done, and they can conduct assessments, and they can assess all the programs or process design for survivors and write reports about it. You see, so their engagements are in different forms, in different ways. So we should not make the participation become just a peer education.
Absolutely. Thank you, Flora. That was very clear. And it's time to wrap up. So thanks to you, and thanks for those who've been watching this episode of the voiceover expert talks on survivor engagement. We hope that this discussion provided some valuable insights and practical approaches to advancing survivor engagement in your work and in your community. I want to mention that this project is funded by the European Union, whose support has made it possible for us, for the partner organizations, to amplify the voices of individuals with lived experience and to foster meaningful dialogue on these critical topics. Be sure to stay connected with us for future episodes as we continue to explore ways to empower survivor leaders and promote ethical, trauma-informed, and impactful practices. Thank you, and see you next time.